How many times have I not known what God is doing until I look back and see a pattern of his faithfulness and all these amazing ways he provides and how he's using me and what he's doing to change lives around me and change me through that. What's up, y'all? It's Rachel Elizabeth, and you're watching Real Talk with Rach, where we talk about real things, vulnerable things, honest things, because I believe there's strength in that, and it's real talk that brings us deeper in relationship with others and deeper in intimacy with God. For those of you who don't know, I have been a Christian my whole life, since I was 4, actually, but it wasn't until 2011 that I actually encountered God for the first time, or I guess a better way to say it is God encountered me, because yeah, that's how it works. When he encountered me, it changed everything, and I realized you could have a real relationship with Jesus. I mean, I believed that he died for my sins and rose from the dead and ascended into heaven and that he's coming back. All the gospel says. I believed that that was true, but nothing had really changed in my life, in my heart, because I didn't know how to have a relationship with God. And that's actually what sets apart Christianity from every other religion, is that God got off his throne to come down here to us, to be one of us, fully God, fully man, so that we could have relationship with him. That's what the cross allowed for. But you can believe in the gospel, you can even be saved, but if you don't have a relationship with Jesus, like, what's the point? Because heaven is relationship with Jesus. Heaven is intimacy with the Father. Heaven is spending all of eternity in his presence. And if you don't cultivate a love for that while you're alive, I don't know how you're going to enjoy heaven. Anywho, that is a different conversation for a different day. What I want to talk about today is the last week of this Purposefully Homeless journey. I'm going to link the video that I posted 2 weeks ago about the last 6 months of this journey, which kind of gives you an overview of why I'm doing this in case you need to catch up. That is in the description box below. The last week has been absolutely amazing, and yet not as, eventful as I thought it might be. But the last few weeks I've also caught you up on where I've been and how God has provided. So I want to look back again and tell you a little bit about how God provided the last few days. A week ago when I was making the vlog, I was staying in an Airbnb for 2 days for that purpose, just to get the vlog done. The next stop was UC Davis. The goal was to drive up to Redding, California, which is where I'm at right now. Now, I want to tell you real quick about how I got that UC Davis spot. A little over a week ago now, I was invited to share my testimony at the Los Angeles Pinky Promise gathering. If y'all don't know about Pinky Promise, check out Heather Lindsay. She is legit and you will love her. But I was invited to share my testimony at Pinky Promise because a friend of mine is actually one of the leaders of that group. So I went, I shared my testimony, and one of the girls who was there offered me a place to stay at UC Davis if I ever went up the coast. What's interesting about that is not just that she invited me to stay at UC Davis, but that I was planning to head up to Redding, and that she was only in LA because it was spring break. The timing could only be God. So when I left Lompoc, I'm gonna get it right one of these days, I drove up to UC Davis and stayed with her. It was amazing. It was perfect because the next day I only had a 2.5-hour drive to get up to Redding. When I got to Redding, I didn't have a place to stay, but Thursday night I booked a cheap motel, and by cheap I mean real cheap. They had a microwave that didn't even reach the outlet on the wall, and I had to move furniture to get things to work. And there were stains on the counter. It was, y'all, the only reason I stayed is because it had brand new sheets and brand new bedding. Anywho, I needed that place so I could do a video audition. I needed that time to just be alone and get that done. After that, I didn't book another hotel because 1, I'm getting real low on funds over here, and 2, God told me that he would provide another way. I was sure of it. Just for clarification, when God speaks, it's not always a word or a voice per se. Sometimes it's just an impression. or a feeling, for lack of better words, but I just had a feeling that I wasn't gonna need to book another hotel. So let's just put it that way. Friday night, I went to Bethel's service and actually got to meet up with someone who had seen my Instagram story because I had tagged Reading in my story. He was going to the service and I told him what was going on. We got a meal afterwards and he texted his friends to see if he could find me a place to stay. He wasn't able to, so I completely surrendered to Jesus. The fear I had about staying in my car, and I was preparing myself to stay in my car so much to the point that I drove up to Bethel's 24-hour prayer house, parked outside, and was praying to prepare myself to sleep in my car. And in that moment, 5 minutes after midnight, I got a text from this guy saying, "I found you a couch." I drove to that place and I was greeted at the door by this precious girl, Katie. She's amazing. And she said, "So you're the reason God told me to clean my house." She said that there wouldn't have even been room for my suitcase if she hadn't cleaned. So that was amazing. An hour later, still talking, and she told me, "You're definitely staying here for a week." Little did she know that I had actually had that impression as I was driving to Reading. My plan was to only be here through Sunday. God made it clear to me on the drive up that I might be staying here longer than Sunday. And when she said that, it confirmed everything. So here I am. It is now Tuesday. I'll probably be here till Friday or longer. We'll see what God has in mind. But God is amazing, and I'm excited to see what else He has here in Reading. I want to share one more story with you. The last few days I've been driving, I've been keenly aware of my brakes grinding. And honestly, it sounds kind of worse than that because I'll hear the sound even after I'm not braking. But I posted about it to my Instagram story and just was confident in telling everyone on my Instagram story that I'm not worried, that I know that somehow, even though I don't have the money to fix my car right now, that God's going to come through, that He's going to provide some way, somehow. And I just wanted to share that so that I could tell everyone how amazing God is when, not if, when He provides. I got a message less than 24 hours later from a well-known, not just any guy, but a well-known guy and his wife who are part of the Bethel music team, who offered to cover any expense to my car. I just wanted to share that with you guys because that is how God works. That is just amazing. And yes, it would have been absolutely amazing if anybody offered to do that. But the fact that these are people that are involved in leadership here at this church, like that just speaks so highly of Bethel. So I'm just so excited to see what else God has to reveal this week while I'm here, because it's not for nothing that I'm here for longer than I thought I was going to be. But story over. I actually want to get you guys to reflect on God's goodness to you. I want you to take some time and actually look back with me, because it's in that looking back, it's in the reflecting, it's in the rear view mirror that everything just becomes so clear. And it's not for no reason that we have Hebrews chapter 11 and basically the entire Bible full of stories of people with incredible faith. That's not just to honor them. It is to honor them, but it's not just to honor them. It's to compel us to have a similar faith, to step out and see God work in our lives as He did in their lives. Because we see this history of this rich faith where people trusted God to lead them anywhere without knowing the destination, without knowing the reason, and without knowing the promise. And in fact, that's what it says in Hebrews chapter 11. It's that so many of the saints and prophets of the Old Testament went to their deaths without ever having seen what their faith was attached to, namely the Messiah, Jesus. They never got to see Him while they were hoping for Him. But you and I actually have a living hope because Jesus has already come. Jesus died and rose from the dead so that we can have a living hope. We have certainty in our hope and our promise that is sure. We don't have to spend our lives hoping for something that we haven't seen come to fruition as a promise fulfilled yet. In the Old Testament, they had to live an entire life of faith without knowing who it was that their hope was in. They knew about Him, they knew who it was they were looking for, but they didn't have a relationship with Him. Now, there are specific people, historically provable lives that God actually showed himself to, and they believed that he would eventually give them the promise of the Messiah. But until Jesus came, we didn't actually have the ability to have a daily relationship free from sin, free from guilt, free from shame until Jesus came. Because before, we had to go to the priests and we had to live the perfect life and to have our sins atoned for at the temple and do all these things and jump through all these hoops. But we have Jesus. So how much more should our faith be a daily thing that people can look at our lives and say, oh my gosh, Jesus is real. That's proof of his being alive today, because that person's faith, I can see the evidence of it. I see God working. I see the proof. And y'all, that's exactly why I'm doing these videos. That's exactly why I'm sharing this journey on my Instagram stories and anywhere I can, because it's not just a book. Y'all, the Bible is living and active. It is the living, breathing word of the living God. And yes, I know I keep saying living, but that is the point. It's not dead. It's not words on a page. It's alive. It's active. It's powerful. It is God's word. Y'all, it's truth. And it's by this truth that we are able to discern what lies we're believing. And I guarantee you that every problem you're facing in your life can either be solved or comforted through the Bible. So, wow, y'all, I didn't even realize I was going to preach like that, but sometimes God just gives me something to say and I have to say it. So I hope that blessed you. I hope it encouraged you to get into the word, get into the Bible. If you don't know how to read it, I encourage you to start with both the New Testament book of John. It's one of my favorite accounts of the life of Jesus, and the Psalms. It's the book of poetry, mostly written by King David, who just poured out his heart to God, and you can see all these real emotions, highs and real lows. And if that's not relatable, I don't know what is, because man, he was so honest with God. And you can learn how to have a real, honest relationship with God just by reading the Psalms. So I highly encourage you to start in those two places, and feel free to leave comments and questions if you need help. I love you. I'm praying for you. Thank you so much to my Patreon family. You guys have no idea how encouraging you are. I know that I say something similar every week, but I mean it. Your financial support shows up at the right time every single month. God is amazing, and he is using you, my friends. Thank you so much. If you want to support what I'm doing and you don't want to be part of Patreon, I have links for donations in the description box below. And that's it. I hope you have a great week. I'll see you next time. Bye. If you watched all the way to the end of this video, I want you to tell me one way that God has shown up for you in the past week. All right, I'll see you next time. Bye.